Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Meg. Welcome, and if you're returning, then welcome back. For today's video, I thought I would do something a little bit different that I haven't really done before on my channel. I'm kind of running out of ideas now of things to film during quarantine, but I really want to sit down and film stuff because what else is there to do? And I thought I would do a story time because I've never done one before. This particular one is going to be about a toxic best friend that I used to have. Just a little disclaimer, I am not filming this video because I want to out her. The reason that I am making this video is purely to make other girls and boys aware of the traits that you can sometimes ignore in somebody just because they're your friend. Sort of teach people that it's okay to cut somebody out of your life if they are toxic to you. Because I know sometimes people do make excuses for the people that they love, and that's what I did in this story time, as you'll find out. So I kind of just wanted to make that clear now so that it doesn't look like I'm just bitter and I'm still talking about a friend that I haven't spoken to for years. Obviously I also won't be using any real names. I'm mainly going to be talking about one friend in particular, but any other friends that I mention will have fake names as well, because I don't want to out anybody and I don't want anybody to watch this video and then go and find these people and give them abuse. I don't want that. So yeah, everyone will have a fake name. It might be a little bit long-winded, this video, so you might want to get a cup of tea and some biscuits or even a gin and tonic or something that will keep you occupied during this video, but it is a good one. It's going to be a little bit like watching an episode of EastEnders, I think. So if you guys want to hear my story about my toxic best friend, then please keep watching. So we're going to call the girl Beth. So I met Beth in year 10. She was a new girl in school and my form tutor had asked me to be the person to look after her for the day. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really look after her. I kind of I showed her to her lessons, like where she needed to go, and then we kind of went our separate ways. I didn't really see her for the rest of the day. And yeah, we didn't really become friends at first. At the time, I was in a very new relationship with my first love. It was my first serious relationship, and also it was like the honeymoon stage, so I kind of spent all of my time with my boyfriend. I didn't really spend much time with my friends at this point. But I think it must have been like after Christmas in year 10 that I started to drift back towards my friends a little bit more. By this point, my friends had actually befriended Beth, so I became friends with Beth, and do you know what? We clicked straight away. We had the same sense of humour, we liked the same things, we had so much in common. And honestly, despite everything that did happen between us, I had some of the funniest times of my life with this girl, and she was my best friend for quite a few years. The thing with me, when I meet somebody that I really connect with on a friendship level, I will literally be like, this person's my best friend, I'm going to do everything with this person, I want to spend all of my time with them. I'm not really a big friendship group kind of girl. Right now I have 2 best friends, I'd say, and then a couple more close friends that I speak to quite a lot, and that's it. I don't have a friendship group like most people do. I used to be in a friendship group with loads of girls from school back before I went to uni, and never again. So yeah, me and Beth kind of hit it off straight away and we got close quite quickly, and it got to the point where me and her would spend time together, just us two, without everybody else. At the time, she lived about 15 minutes away from me, car drive, because she didn't live in the area where we went to school. A little bit of a backstory on Beth. She had left the school that she was at in her catchment area because she was badly bullied. Obviously I'm not going to discuss the ins and outs of what happened because it's not my story to tell, but she had left that school because she was bullied, and I am quite a protective friend anyway. I think I'm always very don't let anyone hurt my friends, and I'll always stick up for my friends till the very end. When I found out that she'd been bullied, I kind of wanted to just protect her. I wanted to make sure that it didn't happen to her again. She lived in an area called Poole in Dorset. I'm sure you've all heard of it. So pretty much every weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, my mum would drop me at her house and we would walk from her house into Poole, Poole Quay, Poole Shopping Centre, all of that, because it was a walking distance from her house. And we would always have deep conversations. We would always chat for ages about anything and everything. Sometimes they would be about something we were concerned about, sometimes we would just be having a laugh, but we always had something to talk about, me and Beth. Anyway, I'm gonna skip ahead to year 11 now. So it got to year 11 and I was still in a relationship at this point with the same boy. We'll call him Harry because I won't use his real name. He was literally like my first love, my first serious relationship. He taught me how to love, but he also taught me heartbreak. And it had gotten to a point, bearing in mind mine and Harry's relationship was a little bit turbulent anyway. There had been a couple of occasions where we'd broken up, but we'd always got back together. It was always his fault as well. It was always him that had ended it, and he would always go and get with other people during these times that we weren't together, and I never did. I was always fiercely loyal to him even when we weren't together. Anyway, this is not about him, so I won't talk in too much detail about that, but basically it got to a point where we'd been together for just over a year at this point, and I kind of started to think that something wasn't right. I'd obviously never been cheated on at this point because I had never been in a relationship, like a proper relationship before, but I had had people close to me that had been cheated on. So I knew the signs to look for in people that were cheating, and, well, not necessarily cheating, but the way he started treating me so much better than he ever had before. And I kind of started to think maybe he'd cheated on me previously and he regretted it so much that he felt so guilty that he'd started treating me like so much better than he ever had before. And I didn't really tell anybody about it. I didn't tell my mum, I didn't tell my friends, or I didn't even speak to him about it. But on this particular day, me and Beth were walking into pool and I decided to voice my concerns to her. I basically just said, you know, I think Harry might have cheated on me. And bearing in mind, this is my boyfriend of over a year. This is the person I'm in love with, and I'm telling my best friend about this. She just quite casually turns around and says, oh yeah, he did. Sorry? I kind of just looked at her and I was like, what do you mean he did? Like, I actually thought she was being sarcastic. We were always very sarcastic with each other, so I thought she was trying to make a joke out of it and make it lighthearted so that I wouldn't get upset. But she was being deadly serious. So I sort of just said, right, like, how do you know this? What do you know? Basically, what had happened, there was a period of time during, like, the summer months where me and him had broken up, and we'd been broken up for about a month, and then we got back together. During this period of us not being together, most people, including me, thought that it was over for good. Like, I don't think people thought we were going to get back together after that breakup. And Beth had obviously been out and she'd bumped into a couple of Harry's friends and ended up spending the day with them. And Harry's friends had basically told Beth that Harry had cheated on me at a house party when we were still together. But at this point of Beth finding out this information, me and Harry weren't together, so I'm guessing the reason his friends took it upon themselves to tell my best friend about it is because they knew that it wouldn't matter if I found out so much, because they thought we were over, if that makes any sense. I don't know why I'm trying to justify it, but the thing that really annoyed me about the whole situation, the thing that made it so much worse, I kind of understand her not telling me, because I guess her thinking was that she didn't want to hurt me for no reason, because at this point I wasn't with the boy, so maybe she just wanted me to just get over it and that be done. But the point where I said to her, I might get back with Harry, or I'm getting back with Harry, should have been the point that she should have told me about him cheating on me, because had I known, I would never have got back with him. So that was what I kind of said to her. She didn't really do a very good job at explaining why she hadn't told me. To be honest, I don't even recall being upset. I was more angry, and I more wanted to know the facts. So I decided to not be too angry at Beth, because I sort of got her reasoning for not telling me. I decided to completely direct my anger at Harry instead. And yeah, long story short, I called Harry when I got back that day. He admitted it, and that was that. We broke up. It was a really hard time for me, because obviously breakups are never easy anyway, but this one was the final breakup. I knew I wasn't getting back with him this time, and obviously it was my first love, my first ever relationship. Like, it was going to be difficult not being with this person. Anyway, it got a bit worse, because I kind of thought, you know, I know everything, I can get over it now. But I then found out about a month after we broke up that it had been multiple girls that he cheated on me with. And again, I didn't know who any of them were, but I just knew that there had been at least 4 occasions where he cheated on me in this year that we'd been together. Obviously, because I found it out after we broke up rather than him just telling me everything when I found out the first time, it kind of just prolonged my pain, because I was sort of starting to not get over it, but I was starting to feel a bit better about it. And then I get this bombshell dropped on me that's even worse and makes me just go back to square one almost. He refused to tell me any information about who these girls were, or where it happened, when it happened, whatever, and that was that. A couple of months after this incident, again, me and Beth are doing our usual Sunday or Saturday or Sunday shopping, walking into pool, and we're talking about the Harry situation, and I don't even know what I said. I must have made a comment, something like, I wouldn't even be surprised if one of these girls that he cheated on me with was one of my friends. Beth just turns around, again, quite casually, and announces, oh my god, I've got something to tell you. Okay, go on, tell me. And she basically goes on to say that she was at a house party and there was a girl there who we'll call Holly. Holly was one of Harry's friends, but she was also my friend because I kind of met her through Harry and we became friends. And Holly had gotten drunk at this party and she'd gone up to Beth and said, quite proudly actually, from the way that Beth explained it to me, it sounded like Holly was quite proud of it. She basically told Beth that she was one of the girls that Harry had cheated on me with. And Beth was only just telling me this now. I mean, personally, if I had one of my best friends, well, not even one of, my literal best friend, be cheated on by someone and I found out who one of the girls was, not only would I have probably thrown my rosé over this girl, I would have called my best friend straight away and told her this information. But Beth just didn't. She just kept it to herself. I don't know why. Maybe I would understand it a bit more if Holly was like one of our friends, like one of our good friends, and it was a choice between betraying her trust or, you know, betraying mine. I would sort of get it if we were all best friends and Beth was stuck in the middle, but she wasn't. Holly wasn't even a friend of hers. She was just this drunk girl that had come up to her at this party and told her this information. The first thing I'm like is, why have you not told me this? Like, this is important information. I deserve to know about this. And she kind of just said that it slipped her mind, and I'm like, how can something like that slip your mind, honestly? But naturally, my first reaction is to message Holly and be like, what the F, girl? And I say, you know, I'm gonna message Holly right now, and Beth's like, no, you can't, you're gonna make me look like a dick, like she's gonna know that I've told you. And I literally just looked at her and I was like, why is your main concern right now how you're gonna look in this situation? Right now you look like a dick to me because you haven't told me some information that would have been really helpful to me. This girl was my friend. It's not just some random girl. She was my friend who I was still friends with and was completely unaware that she'd got with my boyfriend while we were together. I kind of want to know that information so that I can cut that friendship off. I don't think she really understood where I was coming from. I think she was still just thinking about herself, but she knew there was no talking me out of it, so she kind of just left me to it. Those two occasions were kind of the first time that I ever thought, well, I ever questioned Beth's loyalties to me, I guess. But I always just put it down to her just not thinking. Like, she wasn't the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree, Beth. She would say stupid things a lot, and she very often wouldn't think before she would say things. She wouldn't think about situations correctly. Like, I kind of just put it down to that. I didn't think there was any malicious intent behind it. I was angry, but I was more angry at the person who'd actually betrayed me than I was at her. And that was kind of that until we left school. So we finished school in 2011, bloody hell, that was ages ago. I actually went and did a hairdressing apprenticeship at a hair salon, obviously. Beth basically got a Saturday job also at a hair salon where her mum worked. That's how she got the job. And this is where it sort of starts to get good, and you're probably gonna work things out before I did and start shouting at the screen, so get comfy. So this hairdressing job, it was an apprenticeship. I got paid stupid money. Like, I could live off of it back then, but if you ask me to live off of it now, no way. But I used to get paid in cash because I wasn't taxed or anything because I didn't earn enough, and I didn't have a bank account at the time. I was only 16, so I'd never had a reason for a bank account. So I literally just used to get a little wage packet at the end of the week, a little brown envelope with my wages in it, and I would also always have change because I obviously worked in a hair salon, so I used to get tips quite a lot. And at the end of each week, which was a Saturday, because we were always shut on a Sunday and a Monday, I would always take my tips for the week, if that makes sense. I usually had like between 10 and 20 pounds in like pound coins. So I always had cash in my purse, and I always had pound coins or £2 coins in my purse. So one day, me and Beth were walking to a bus stop from my house, because at this point I couldn't drive. I was learning to drive but couldn't drive yet, and her mum calls her And she answers it and she kind of starts having an argument with her mum straight away. She's getting very defensive, she's getting a little bit like agitated. I don't know what her mum's saying to her, but whatever it was, I knew that it wasn't good. So I kind of just like minded my business because I knew she'd tell me about it as soon as she got off the phone. Anyway, she gets off the phone and I'm like, what's going on? And basically her mum had called her and accused her of stealing money from this salon that she worked at. And I don't know about you guys, but if my place of work said to my mum, we think your daughter's been stealing money, my mum wouldn't just be like, yeah, I completely agree, my daughter's a thief, and ring me and then go, Meg, you've stolen this, you're a thief, blah, blah, blah. My mum would be like, well, no, hang on a second, my daughter wouldn't do that, let's like look into it a little bit first. But Beth's mum didn't do that. She was kind of very adamant that Beth had done it and was treating her like she was guilty, which at the time I thought was a bit unfair of Beth's mum. And obviously I was just completely on her side. I didn't believe she would do that. I was there for her, I stuck up for her, and we kind of just said, you know, let's forget about it, let's just go and have a nice day. I don't really know the progression of what happened because she never really talked about it again, but I do know that supposedly someone had seen her taking like £200 out of the till or something like that, but I never really believed it. Anyway, one day, this era was the era of the house party, one of the best eras if you ask me. At this point, obviously, me and all of my friends from school were all either 16 or 17. None of us were old enough to go clubbing yet, so there was always a house party pretty much every Saturday night, and it was always in the area where I live because pretty much everyone from school lived in the same area. So Beth would always come to mine on a Saturday after I finished work, and we would get ready together, we would pre-drink, and then we would walk to the house party. So on this particular Saturday, I got home from work, I put my bag on the bed, which obviously had my wages and all of my tips in my purse in the bag, and Beth comes around, we get ready, and we're just about to leave, and I go into my purse to get some change out, just in case we needed it for like a taxi or a takeaway or anything really. We never usually needed money, but I always liked to take some just in case. And my tips are gone. I know exactly what you're all thinking right now. I did not think that. It didn't even cross my mind, to be honest. I actually went downstairs to my mum and I said, Mum, my tips are gone out of my purse. She said, well, are you sure you definitely took them? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I always do on a Saturday because it's the last day of work. But I did kind of think to myself, I was like, maybe I didn't. Maybe I went to do it and got distracted and didn't. So I kind of just let it go. I was like, we're going to go to this house party, we're going to have a great time, and I'll sort it out on Tuesday when I go back to work to find out whether I actually did take them or not. I did take them. I knew I did because I always did on a Saturday. So they had just vanished and I didn't know where to. But I decided not to dwell on it too much because, you know, I didn't want to start throwing accusations at people, which, by the way, wouldn't have been at Beth because I did not have her in my head at all. And then a few weeks after this incident, I started noticing that some clothes were going missing. You know when you're just looking for a certain item of clothing and you can't find it anywhere? Usually it does turn up somewhere, doesn't it? Because it has to. It's in your house somewhere. It's just somewhere that you wouldn't have thought to put it. But I would spend about an hour looking for a certain item of clothing and it would just have vanished. And it happened with a few things. It wasn't just like one thing. There were a couple of like bits of my clothes that just went missing. They just vanished. And at the time, my oldest brother was living back with us. He'd moved back in. He was living basically in a room in our garden, not a shed, like a proper insulated garden room. He at the time was having some questionable women over. He was, you know, he was single, he was having fun, let's say that, but obviously he was bringing women into his garden room that we didn't know, and because it was just a room, like a bedroom and a lounge, it didn't have like a bathroom or a kitchen or anything. Obviously we never locked the house to him because if he needed to go to the toilet or have a shower or make some food, he would need to come into the house to do that. So what I put it down to was that he was inviting some complete wrong-uns round and they were coming in and stealing my clothes when I wasn't here. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Like, that's the sort of lengths that I went to. Those were the sort of stories I came up with rather than the most obvious one, which I know you all know. Again, I didn't take it any further because I couldn't prove anything. That's the problem with things like this. When you can't prove something, there's honestly no point in bringing it up. But I did start to be quite vigilant, like, I pretty much knew the entire order of my wardrobe so that I would know if something was missing before I wanted to wear it. So I'll skip ahead quite a few months now. I hadn't had any more money or clothes go missing at this point. So I kind of just thought maybe it was like these girls that my brother was bringing around and maybe he stopped now or whatever. I didn't think too much into it, to be honest. And then there was one Friday night where Beth said to me, come over tonight, I'm staying at my dad's. So her dad literally lived in a flat just up the road from her house that she lived in with her mum, but her dad very often was out for the night or let her have the flat to herself basically. And on those occasions I would normally go over and we would drink, because we weren't old enough to actually go out and drink, so we would drink, get a takeaway, have a movie night, whatever, because her dad basically had a sofa that turned into a bed, so we always slept in the lounge. It was like an ideal girly sleepover. Anyway, Beth said to me this one Friday night, come to mine and we'll have a sleepover, and I obviously said, you know, I've got work on Saturday morning, I can come, but I'll have to leave early in the morning. I always got paid on a Friday, so I got given my little envelope, I put it in my bag. My mum picked me up from work, she took me straight to Beth's from work, I didn't go home. And I got to Beth's, and I would have put my bag down somewhere, but like I would not have taken my wages out of my bag. There would have been no reason for me to. She had everything there that we needed. She had the alcohol, she had the pizzas that we were eating that night. You know, I can't really remember the night in full detail, but we wouldn't have needed any money at any point because we didn't go anywhere. So I stayed over at Beth's. I woke up the next morning quite early and I just left her in bed because she always used to sleep in really late anyway, but on this particular occasion I was getting up early to go to work. My mum picked me up, I got dressed, I went downstairs, went home. I got ready for work and I'm just about to leave and I look in my bag and my wages are gone. And bearing in mind I hadn't yet opened this envelope, so there's £100 in cash that's just gone missing out of my bag. No, I just started panicking. I thought I'd dropped them somewhere. I was like stood in my hallway like, what has happened? Like my wages are gone, blah blah blah. And my brother, I remember, he literally just looked at me and he was like, Meg, seriously? Like, have you not worked it out yet? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, it's Beth that's stealing from you. When anything goes missing, she's always there. Me and her also did used to borrow each other's clothes, so she could have quite easily taken my clothes. And suddenly the reality just hit me and I just started crying because this was my best friend and I just worked out that she'd been stealing from me for months. I remember my brother just cuddling me and being like, it's okay, it'll be fine. And I honestly didn't know what to do, but I did know that I needed to go to work. So I got in my mum's car and I decided to send Beth a text, but I didn't want to accuse her. I wanted to ask her if she'd seen them to see what she would say, because I knew if I accused her, I wouldn't get my wages back, basically. I knew if I said, you've stolen my wages, she couldn't have then said, oh yeah, I have, they're here. So I knew that if I didn't accuse her and I just asked her if she'd seen them, I would likely get them back. So I remember I messaged her and I was like, Beth, have you seen my wages? It's £100 in cash, like it's my money for the week, it's gone missing out of my bag, have you seen them? And she replied something like, oh, I don't know, I'll have a look now. And bearing in mind as well what I just told you about her sleeping in, I can't see a reason why she would have been awake at that time. It was like probably 8:30 on a Saturday morning at this point. She was never awake at that time, ever. And I feel like maybe she heard her phone go off, saw my text, shit herself, and woke up straight away and messaged me back. She said something like, I don't know, I'll have a look. But she was like concerned. She was like, oh my god, like, I'll have a look, don't worry, I'll find them if they're here. And then I get another text back a few minutes later saying, found them, they were under your pillow. Sorry, why were they under my pillow? Like what, did I put a tooth under the pillow that night and the tooth fairy came and gave me my wages? And that was when I knew. When she said that, I was like, she took them. Why would they have been under my pillow? I didn't even take them out of my bag all night. And why would I put them under my pillow? Why would I go over to my bag, get £100 in cash out of it and go, I'm gonna put this under my pillow for tonight? Why? Why would I do it? And you would think that someone who'd been stealing from me for that long would have come up with a better excuse than they were under your pillow. She literally shot herself in the foot. She gave herself away. I didn't need to do any investigating. So I kind of wanted to send her a message before I got to work, because otherwise I would have just been thinking about it all day. I basically accused her of stealing them. And I actually didn't mention any of the other things. Like, I didn't say, you've stolen money from me this time, you've stolen my clothes. I just like reference this particular time. She's the only person that it could have been. Like, who else could it have been? Me and her were the only two people in the flat that night. She was the only person I saw other than my mum after I got given the wages and put them in my bag. It was just, honestly, it was plain as day, and I couldn't believe it had taken me so long to work out that it was her, especially considering she'd been accused of stealing money from her job. And she actually, I forgot to mention this, but she actually did get sacked from that job because of it. You don't sack someone unless you've got proof that they've stolen something. Otherwise it could be classed as unfair dismissal. And even with that information in my head, I never thought it was her. She was also always very fond of my clothes. She would always ask to borrow my clothes all the time, which I didn't mind. Like, I'm all up for lending my friends my clothes as long as I get them back, which obviously on this occasion I didn't. So yeah, I sent her a text, I accused her, and I put my phone in my bag and didn't look at it until my lunch break, which was about 4 hours later. And I had literally so many text messages from her. I had loads of missed calls from her. Bearing in mind, she knows I'm at work. Like, that's the whole reason I left her house early, was because I had to go to work. And she's having a massive go at me. She is hurling abuse at me. She's saying, I can't believe you won't even answer the phone to me. The least you could do after you've accused me of this is answer the phone to me. And I'm like, well, I'm at work. Like, how would you expect me to answer the phone to you? And also, if I am going to answer the phone to you, you're not going to like what I'm going to say. So honestly, you would have thought that I was the person that had stolen from her. The amount of abuse she was hurling at me, it was ridiculous. I kind of decided the best way to go about it was to just completely ignore her. So that's what I did. Anyway, that evening, she obviously thought it would be best to get one of our friends on her side. So she invited one of our mutual friends round. We'll call her Katie. And it got to the point that evening where it was quite obvious that Katie was the one writing the text messages. Like, Katie had obviously heard Beth's version of the story. She obviously didn't know any of the background information about, like, money going missing for ages and clothes going missing. So she just believed everything Beth had said, and she then hated me as well. I was literally the victim in this situation, and I was the one being abused. Like, some of the things that they both called me were disgusting. Considering she had been bullied before, you wouldn't have thought that she would have come for me the way that she did and got one of our friends to come for me as well. I was very mature about the situation, I thought, considering I was only 17 at this point. I decided to just ignore her. And so I ignored her for the rest of the weekend, and I think I actually invited one of my other friends round for the weekends just so that I had a friend around me. And then it got to, I think it was Monday, because Monday was normally the day, even though it was technically one of my days off, it was normally the day where I went to college, because I'm sure you all know, but with an apprenticeship you have to go to college one day a week as well as doing your job for the rest of the week. So I was at college on the Monday, and I was on my lunch break, and I get a call from Beth, and I decided to answer it because it was the first time she'd called me that day. She'd been calling and texting me on the Sunday, but obviously as soon as Katie had left, she'd felt a little bit lost. So she called me in tears and said, can you stop this now, please? And I kind of went, stop what? I haven't done anything. And she was like, you know that I haven't done this, you know this isn't true. For anybody that doesn't know, a classic line from someone when they're trying to convince you that you're the one that's wrong is them saying, you know I haven't done this. You know that I would never do that to you. You know I'm not like that. Classic gaslighting, don't fall for it. And I didn't, to be fair. I didn't think that it was my fault. I didn't think I was wrong. I knew she'd done it. But at the end of the day, this girl was my best friend. I spent all of my time with her. She was crying, and although I thought she was an absolute bitch at this point, I didn't want to listen to her crying. I don't like listening to anyone cry. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt and meet up with her the following day. So I met up with her. We talked things through. I still thought she'd done it, but my thinking was, she's not going to do it again. She's been caught. If it happens again, then she'll just be proving my point. Like, it'll be obvious it was her if she carries on doing it. So I decided to just let it go, really. I shouldn't have, but I did. But I never said to her, like, I don't think you've done this. She kind of always knew in the back of her mind that I still thought it of her, but, you know. And then about a week later, I get a message on Facebook. I saw that Beth had basically gone to a sleepover at another one of our friends' house, who we'll call Lucy. She'd gone to Lucy's house with one other friend, and she'd stayed over. And then the following day, Lucy messages me on Facebook, and she's like, hey Meg, I just wondered if you were free, if I could call you. And I'm like, bearing in mind, like, me and Lucy are friends, but she's never called me in her life. I'm like, why does she want to call me? So I gave her my number and I said, yeah, cool, whenever. She calls me and she's like, so I'm guessing you know that Beth was round last night? And I was like, yeah. And she said, you know, I heard about everything that happened between you and her. And I was like, yeah. And at this point, I thought Lucy was ringing me to have a go at me, because I thought maybe Beth had given it the sob story to Lucy and then Lucy wanted to have a go at me for it. I was very wrong. Okay guys, I know I didn't mention this at the beginning of the video, but I am actually going to split this into 2 parts because it is getting quite long. I can talk quite a lot and I don't want it to be like an hour-long video, so I'm going to split it up into 2 parts. I am going to end the first part here because I think it's quite fun to leave things on a cliffhanger. So yeah, this is the end of part 1, guys. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. I'm not sure when I'm going to post part 2 yet, but I may do a poll on Instagram to ask you guys when you want to see it. Depends how desperate you are to hear the rest of the story. If you aren't following me on Instagram, I will leave it linked here and I will also leave it linked down below. Hope you've enjoyed the video and I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you did, then please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in part 2.